What's Cooking with Momma Pearl. Today we're making squash and sweet potato soup. The squash I'm using is an acorn squash. A lot of recipes you see for squash, especially the acorn squash, require you to cut it in half and then put it in the oven and roast it first. This recipe doesn't require any pre-cooking, no boiling, no roasting, nothing. We're going to cut it in half, scrape out the insides, and then cut it into slices like you would an orange or an apple, and then take your vegetable peeler and peel the skin off that way, and then cut it into about 1-inch cubes. Then we took the sweet potatoes and the carrots and peeled them with the vegetable peeler first, and then cut them up into cubes. I took an onion and chopped it very finely into very small pieces because you want it to break down during the cooking. The rest of the ingredients chopped up and put into the crock pot. I then added a 32-ounce container of chicken broth. You can use vegetable broth or chicken broth depending on your taste. I prefer the chicken broth because it gives it a little more flavor to me. I added some dried granulated garlic, some onion powder, salt, a little pepper, and I like to put poultry seasoning in for my spice in this soup. If you prefer a more pumpkin pie flavor to your soup, use a pumpkin pie spice. That's cinnamon, nutmeg, and cloves. And pumpkin spice is really popular this time of year. I prefer a more savory flavor, that's why I use the poultry seasoning. Put it all in your crock pot, plug it in, and turn it on to high. Let it cook for about 6 hours. After the 6-hour point, take off the lid and switch your crock pot to low. Take your spoon or a potato masher and mash all the vegetables in the pot. If you're low on water, if the chicken broth has cooked out, then you can add 2 or 3 cups of water. You want to keep your liquid level and your chopped vegetable level even, and that's from the start. So you continue to mash and mash and mash until it's broken up into pieces. If you have an immersion blender, this would be where you could use it to go in and chop it up more finely. Or if you chose to pour it into a conventional blender and whip it up on your conventional blender. I never had either one, so I got used to using a wire whisk when I was younger, and it's just more comfortable to me. I like my soup a little chunky anyway. So after I mash everything up, I take my wire whisk and I whisk. Now, not like you're making scrambled eggs. Whisk slowly, but move it through and finish breaking up all of those pieces of vegetables until your soup is kind of smooth. At this point, some people like to add a half a cup of heavy whipping cream or maybe half a stick of butter to give it some creaminess or something like that. I prefer not to. I don't like the extra stuff, and I have to be careful with cooking. Sometimes I can have some trouble with milky things. Season to taste with a little salt and pepper, put it in a bowl, and serve it with a nice big chunk of bread. I prefer cornbread with my pumpkin and squash soups. One thing a lot of people don't realize is those cans of pumpkin you buy a lot of times aren't just pumpkin. They use other seasonal squashes that are yellow or orange in color and have the same flavor. So this can come out tasting like a nice pumpkin soup. And you can tell people it's pumpkin soup if you have people that you're serving it to that don't like squash. Pumpkin is a squash. I hope you've enjoyed this short tutorial on my way of making acorn squash and sweet potato soup. We'll see you next week.